Apparently, over the course of conversation today, I learned that I maybe did not explain all of my modifications to this yesterday, as well as maybe I could have. So, if you're interested at all in more about how I converted this pen, stay tuned. If you don't care, then that's fine. Here's the deal with this pen, is that originally, down inside here, I have a hot end. Let me see if I can make this better. So the whole thing comes apart, and you can take this plastic tip off, and then here is the actual hot end. You've got 4 wires that come off of this, 2 for the heating element and 2 for the thermistor for measuring your temperature. And then your filament feeds in through the top right there. So that all fits back together. And the hot end attaches to this circuit board. So this circuit board has a couple of buttons, or it did. I've got taken the plastic off. This one retracts the filament, this one advances it, and it also, when the unit is cold, you press that once and it turns on the light here, this indicator light, and says, it's yellow when it's heating up and green when it's ready. So you have to constantly be using this or it shuts off by itself. So the board is there, and then also what used to be in there was this plastic tube, and you can see the Teflon tube I've got mounted in there now, but this plastic tube was in there, and this little tiny extruder. It's a DC motor with several gears inside it and bearing to run up against the filament, so it pinches the filament between the gear and the bearing just like any other extruder would. And that would all fit up inside here like this. So what I did was remove the extruder assembly, and where the power plug used to be, I drilled that out a little bit and added a quick coupling here for a Teflon tube, and it actually threaded in there fairly well. I added a little hot glue just as insurance, but for the most part it was very difficult to thread in to the plastic. I didn't tap it or anything, I just used a wrench and fed that in there. And I used the large diameter one, not the 6mm one, but the larger one, so that I could feed my Teflon tube through that and straight through here down to where this clamp is and right into the hot end. So that allows me to then attach the other end of my Bowden assembly to my extruder. So I've got an external extruder. I have no idea how in the world, I discussed this with my friend Mike today, how in the world would I take something like this and convert this into a servo unit somehow that it could measure steps, and you could use an H-bridge to control direction, but how do you convert step and direction signals from your Arduino ramps driver to make this compatible so that you could use this? And I'm not sure there's an easy way. There's probably not. So in the end, we're just going to use the external extruder to drive all this thing. So I drilled out where the filament used to come in here to a little bit larger hole, and I've got 2 pairs of wires in here. Where the power plug used to plug in here, I just got a connector in there so I can run that to my 12 volts and just connect that directly to my ramps board. And I've also got, I don't know how close I can get here, where this switch is, and this is the one that moves the filament forward, I soldered 2 wires onto the board so that it simulates the switch, so that it connects across where the switch would be. And that's what I had yesterday, where I was showing this connector, is that I constantly have to take a piece of wire and I'm just shorting across these 2 wires, which is the exact same as if I was just pushing on that switch. And that tells the electronics of the pen to turn the heat on, keep the heat on. I'm not extruding anything by that, but at least if I keep giving it a signal, then the heat stays on. I have to give it a continuous signal. I can't just short that and expect it to stay on. It wants to see an on-off type of signal, so I can't just plug that in and leave it on. I have to come up with some way for my ramps to tell this to cycle on and off somehow so that it keeps the hot end engaged and on. Not sure how I'm going to do that yet. I never know how I'm going to do anything until I get there. What I would have loved to have done was try to make a mount for this hot end instead of using the entire pen. Make some type of a mount just for the hot end and then move the electronics and everything else away from this that would make this super light, and I just didn't have time to make that happen. So that's why I've got the entire pen here, and that's why I had to counterweight that with this weight on the back here. This is just fishing line. This is just a chunk of, I don't know what that's from, some kind of a mount from something I took apart, but it just rides on top of this bearing and counterweights this so that my Z-axis stepper motor can handle that kind of weight. So maybe in the future I will come up with a way to make a really tiny hot end here instead of this whole big thing. No idea if that's going to happen anytime soon or not, but again, I'm just having fun playing around.